Okay, totally not second take of this. I'm watching this video because queues are 90 minutes long. And people wanted me to watch this. And it seemed interesting. I didn't just say this. There wasn't an error, don't laugh.
So one of the most common questions that I get asked when I'm streaming Dead by Daylight is whether or not I think that this game is getting better. Whether or not Dead by Daylight is now in a better spot than some time ago.
It is.
As someone that has been playing this game for many years and has seen some of the lowest points of DVD, I can pretty confidently say that Dead by Daylight is overall getting better. Yes. Most of the new patches and new changes make the game a little bit more balanced, give it a little bit more variety, and overall strive towards the correct direction. And yet, lately, I can't help but feel that DVD is one of the least fun experiences it's ever been for me. We have the very amazing 2v8 game mode going on right now. And the game modes that have this seasonal theme to it that you play for a little while, don't get me wrong, they're pretty fun. I've enjoyed playing the 2v8 Survivor with my viewers. It's a super fun experience. And then when I play Killer, there is a 15-minute queue, and this is horrible. If you are a streamer, it's really not feasible to wait for 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, this is something like every streamer friend that I've talked to about this. Like, we all enjoy 2v8. We all think 2v8 is super fun, but it is not a sustainable business model for our streams. Like, we just physically cannot do it, and that sucks because I find it more fun than regular DVD, but we literally cannot do it. It's just... At that point, you have to change your game category to something that's not DBD because you're playing more something that's not DBD.
For then a match that might last five minutes, it's really not very sustainable. So I decided, you know what, let's just play the classic Dead by Daylight. Let's go back to the one before non-event mode. I'm going to
oh no, he's gonna get sweated so hard.
Video. I played about 40 games. Most of them were me playing without a HUD to get pretty footage for my tier list, and also a few matches were me with basic beginner builds because I was trying to record a tutorial, right? So I went into these matches not particularly interested in winning, just trying to record pretty footage. And my stats in these matches were unbelievably...
If I had to make a prediction, I'm going to go with my own experiences in playing 1v4 while 2v8 is up. 1v4 matches have seemed significantly sweatier. And I think it's because all the casual players are playing 2v8. And they're no longer diluting the pool of 1v4, so 1v4 is just only the sweats. And that's how it's felt for me, so I'm guessing that's how it's for him too.
Depressing. In more than half the games, I'm looking at it right now, we had map offerings from the survivors. The map offerings often send you to Autohaven or perhaps more commonly Macmillan offerings. These realms are currently
all
bugged,
Erie.
and you sometimes get more safety in these maps than you should. There was a rule that tried to make the maps a bit more balanced.
Oh, we noticed that on Blood Lodge the other day.
The same tile could spawn. This has been bugged, and survivors seem to really want to go to this map. So in more than half the games, I was sent to a map offering. And even though it's only one map out of like 40, I played on the Eyrie of Crows in literally 1/4 of my games. That is absolutely insane. Survivors have such an obsession sending me to this map. I don't know why. Either way, another thing that I saw very common is
because it's
the very
absurdly
strong items,
started.
things like BMPs, syringes, styptics, they now get used in almost 40% of the matches.
So
and you might think,
all this data is from the start of 2v8 till now, right? Because this has been pretty much tracking with my data too. There's usually a syringe or a BMP in basically every single game, at least one. Map offerings. I wouldn't say I've not had a 1 in 5 Eyrie rate here. That's pretty fucking bad. But I have definitely noticed way sweatier add-ons and items and stuff every single game. So,
well, you know, going to a map
in
offering
1v4.
every other match, having one syringe every other time, that's not such a big deal. I'm now noticing that these things always come together. Like it's never one thing or the other. Now you get map offerings, you get survivors with very, very strong items.
This has been my experience so far.
Happen, there's also a really good chance that survivors will just give up because the game didn't go their way. People giving up and making matches really uninteresting is still sadly quite common.
Dude, this is like, wow. This has been my exact experience playing 1v4 while 2v8 is up. People playing very sweaty, bringing sweatier add-ons, items, map offerings, and then immediately giving up even when we just had a game. I know this is probably on YouTube and I won't have the game right before this. Literally 5 minutes before I started recording this, we had a game where I had 3 hook states with 1 gen left and I downed the guy and he DC'd on first hook. Like, what? People are giving up at such a stupid rate. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Did he just change his shirt mid-video? The answer is yes, but the other thing that you're thinking is, isn't the 2v8 game mode a temporary thing? When it's over, aren't all of the casual players just gonna flood back to the normal game mode?
I think they
and
would.
Then things will be average again? The answer to that is yes, but it's not gonna last forever. Eventually, we'll get another game mode that creates the same problem, and even if we don't, the player base is simply going to start to unlock more and more stuff. Right now, one of the things that keeps the gameplay a little bit more interesting, the game's a little bit less sweaty, and the variety a little bit more wild is the fact that people are still leveling up. For example, if you're a survivor and you're leveling up your blood web, you might get one strong item every now and then, but not enough to play them every single match. However, when you get to Prestige 100, if you've never seen it, it looks like this. You get blood webs with very high rarity items.
That's not a big deal, though. There's not that many Prestige 100s.
Exactly the same type of blood web, level 50 blood web, again with very strong high rarity items. You can basically, if you're a bit lucky, use one of these items every single match.
There's
forever.
a lot. I would argue people that have a Prestige 100 character is probably like 1% of the player base. And that really only matters for those people. Because if you're Prestige 99 and anything below, it doesn't matter. You have the exact same shit as every time. So, I don't know. I don't think there's enough. It's more, if anything, with blood point bonuses and free gifts in the stores and blood hunts and events and incentive offerings because queue times are really bad. All of those things equate to just simply having way more items and way more, way more offerings and all that stuff than you normally would. He's saying that more people will be reaching it. Yeah, here's my take on that. It is true that the more those people play, more people will continue to reach that, but I have a, what is it, like the great filter theory of like space? It's a self-limiting problem in my opinion, where yes, people will eventually over time get to that point, but at the same rate, people also get bored of DBD and stop playing it. So once they get to that point, it's not like they're permanently in the pool forever for end all time, and they'll have all those items now for the rest of the time. A lot of them just stop playing the game because they get bored and they're like, oh my god, I just prestige 100 character. I'm going to fucking go die now because why am I still playing this game? I feel like, yes, we get a lot more of them, but then we lose them at almost the same rate. So that's why I don't think that aspect of the problem is as important. It's just a theory, but I don't think it's as impactful.
And since survivors are all skins of each other, unless you still have some archive left, there's nothing preventing you from doing this. On Killer, it is a little bit more complicated. Each killer has their own add-ons and offerings. They don't share them. But if you decide to specialize in one killer, like for example, I have a P100 Plague here, you could get strong add-ons and offerings every single blood web and stockpile them to a ridiculous degree. If I wanted to, I could play with the strongest Plague build, which would be really, really obnoxious.
I think that's less prestige related and more just abundance of blood points related.
There would be nothing stopping me from doing that. There is, not only is there nothing.
Yeah, like that line down there. Even if you aren't P100 yet, more and more of your opponents will be as time passes. I don't think, like, yes, that is true, but it's less than you would think because at the same rate, people are stopping playing or taking long breaks or like whatever, you know.
Stopping me from doing that.
But yes, technically that is true. Just I think it's much smaller.
There's not anything even discouraging you from doing this. Quite on the contrary, when you play against when you play against opponents that are quite sweaty, you are very tempted to bring the best loadout possible. And some things right now stand out as being particularly problematic in the sense that they're going to become more and more popular. Let me talk about each of these issues and how I think it's going to get worse, but also how maybe we could prevent it. So the first issue is disconnections and giving up. This is something that has noticeably gotten worse over time. Despite having a DC penalty, people still quit all of the time. And one thing that I've noticed is that the people that quit are not necessarily new players. On the contrary, the more veteran the player, the more likely they are to quit. And the reason why is because they understand.
In 1v4, you have lobbies like 2 or 3 P100s very regularly, at least I do. I would say I have an average of 1 Prestige 100 like out of 3 games maybe. But the point is, if the argument is the Prestige 100 thing matters because once you're 100, you permanently have max Prestige blood webs, that's not relevant, because if you're at Prestige 90 or whatever, the 100 is not the important part. It's the fact that you've spent 90 blood webs worth of blood points on that character. You're going to have a billion add-ons. You're going to have a billion everything for that character, no matter what. If you've spent that many blood points, the Prestige 100 isn't the important part. It's the fact that you've spent, 90 million blood points on that character. That's the important part.
better than new players that quitting is completely free. If you kill yourself on the hook, even if you are throwing the game and making it impossible for your teammates, you have zero penalty whatsoever. And if you disconnect by, you know, pulling the plug or exiting the match, yeah, you have a little penalty, but it's just 1 minute. It's pretty much over by the time you queue up again. And even if you do it once or twice every now and then, the penalty is just so unbelievably forgiving that a lot of people know they can just get away with it and they keep doing it. I do think more penalties should be applied, and the options to kill yourself on hook early could be diminished, but I know that there's...
I don't know if I have a hot take about that. I think you should have no disconnect penalty whatsoever for your first game, and then the next one is 15 minutes. Don't have like the 1, 5, 15 build up. Just go, all right, you get one freebie a day. That's it. Everything else, stop playing or you get banned. I think that would probably be better. Because like, yeah, I don't know that like doing the progression is better. It's hard to say though. It's a really hard problem to fix.
This is a very heavy and contested topic. I don't know exactly how to fix it, but one thing that would be really, really nice is to stop penalizing people after someone else has disconnected. If someone in the lobby has already DC'd, everybody else should be able to DC without a penalty, outside their party, of course. You shouldn't be able to DC for free if your teammate, duo, Discord, or your survivor friends disconnects, right? But if someone outside of your party has disconnected, you should be able to DC from that match, and whatever...
What changed? I used to be in favor of no DC penalty. I think I was living in too idealistic world where it's just not the reality of the scenario. Like, ideally, what you're supposed to do is fix the things that people find unfun, and people won't feel the need to disconnect. And I think I was just living in a fantasy land where I thought that would eventually ever actually happen. Because obviously that is the best solution, but it's not. It's just simply not realistic anymore.
Little blood points you've earned, you keep them, right? And you don't get a penalty. That means that if someone gives up at 5 gens, the killer can DC, and the other guys can DC, and in whichever order they want to, they can DC, and they can all move on to the next match, and we're not stuck in a game that is super unfun. And if you want to, if you think you can win, you can still stay, right? But you're not going to be forced to play that.
I agree with that completely.
DC, unless there are killer bots, obviously the game ends for everyone, and nobody loses blood points after one person has given up. I think this is just pretty common sense.
I think that is common sense as well. I think once somebody disconnects, and that essentially ruins the game for everybody else, no one else should be penalized the same way as that first guy.
Map offerings are another thing that has been more and more prevalent recently. I don't think they've changed very much at all. You know, people will use them to avoid going to indoor maps, which I can sympathize. People will use them to go to a map where their killer is easier, which I can somewhat understand. But it gets extremely lame to be sent to the same maps over and over and over again. Some people think that maps in DBD are the biggest balancing factor.
They are.
And one side should not be able to constantly
Completely
choose
agree.
which map to go to. I will die on this hill. There are multiple ways you could fix this. The most elegant and beautiful would be to make all of the maps balanced and all of them fun and fair. And the developers I'm sure are doing their best, but we're not there yet. So
but we never will get to that point. And the reason we will never get to that point is they fix maps at the same rate that they introduce new shitty maps. So we've had the same issue for the entirety of the game's existence. They would basically have to not release maps for like a year, and instead every patch just fix old maps or something like that. But the rate that they add new bad maps is equal to the rate that they fix old maps. So the ratio never changes. We still have shitty maps and we still have good maps. Like, I don't think they'll ever really fix that. And, short of an Operation Health type thing where they just straight up don't release new content for a long time, I don't think that's going to happen. And yeah, I will still die on the hill as well that the map is the biggest determining factor of the outcome of a match. It's like map and then your skill and then the items and offerings and add-ons and stuff brought. That's like the hierarchy, in my opinion. Honestly, items and offerings and add-ons interchangeable with skill depending on the killer and depending on the map.
Until that happens, please limit map offerings.
Or reverse them.
I think there's 2 ways you could do it relatively quickly. Number 1 would be to buff the green hand. This is an offering that cancels map offerings. You could make it so that if there is no map offering, this green hand doesn't get consumed. That means if you're someone like me that doesn't want to be sent to map offerings from other people's choices, I can use this every match, and if it doesn't get used, well, I use it again the next match. Maybe you could even have a little blood point bonus to all players. So that if you see multiple green hands in your lobby, it's
their
like
fixes are rarely fixes too. True.
Like, oh, I guess
there's no guarantee they ever will fix it.
That could be nice, maybe. Another idea is to limit...
What do you think of the system where you see the map in the lobby like TCM? No, you can't do that. Killers will just dodge all the bad killer maps. Survivors dodge all the bad survivor maps. You can't do that. Ideally, there wouldn't be any bad maps on either side, but yeah, you can't do that.
Map offerings to some kind of condition. I thought in the past that
all map offerings are canceled if any player in the lobby is at or above gold 4 grade. I don't know if tying that to grades is a good idea. I've never liked that type of thing. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's abusable in many, many ways. If any player in the lobby, So doesn't that just mean around rank reset, you would just have all of the sweaty games condensed into 1 week? I don't know. That just seems like it would give, instead of having like a dispersion of shitty games throughout your entire time, you would just have all shitty games for 1 week. I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea.
Maybe Survivor fans shouldn't be able to use map offerings, but this does feel a bit unfair, especially for newer players. So how about map offerings only work at a certain grade/rank?
How people could abuse that? It's not necessarily people intentionally abusing that. It's people having the knowledge that their map offerings are utterly worthless except during a certain period. So it means that certain period after rank reset would be fucking miserable, and every single game would have multiple map offerings every single time because it's the only time you could actively use it. So they want to use their offerings. You can use it only during that time. Thus, they're all going to use it. It just condenses the amount of map offerings into 1 week rather than the entire month, basically.
The old rank 8, which is golden ranks, map offerings stop working altogether for all sides. This could be a way to make map offerings happen at the start of the season, which happens halfway through the month, when the new season comes out and everyone is grade 20, or grade, what is it called? Ash 4, the old rank 20. People can use map offerings and they can play on their favorite maps and they can do their achievements and their archives. They're obviously not going to remove map offerings. Some people need map offerings to do their specific map-specific achievements, like escaping RPD 20 times. I understand
I agree, Neo.
But then after people level up, you can't use them anymore. If you use a map offering and then you reach golden ranks, it stops working. If someone in your party is that rank, it stops working altogether. So that would be a really nice incentive for people that get better to... That
would also be weird because it says any player in the lobby, which means if, you didn't play Survivor for 2 weeks after rank reset and you get... Because MMR is not based on your grade, so you might want to just burn a map offering and but you didn't play earlier, so I don't know. It's not a good idea.
Embrace the variety of maps. That would be one way to do it. Let me know what you think or if you have a better solution for them. Next issue is medkits. Now, let me be clear. All of the items...
Do I have a better solution for them? I think a lot of people have made the suggestion that map offerings should be map bans. Simple as that. It makes it so the developers don't have to remove map offerings, but they just inverse the effect. You burn a Batum offering, you cannot get Batum. That's it. Just don't make it any more complicated than that. It's just basically it's a jank, very simple map ban system where you can really not want a map and you can guarantee you're not going to get it. I think it would make them way less useful for sure, but they're just too impactful. They're too strong. Map offerings are the strongest thing you can bring. It's stronger than a Mori. It's stronger than every add-on offer. It's just everything. Map offerings are just too strong. So I want them to be basically neutered for both sides.
On the Survivor side are extremely outdated and all of them require some attention. Toolboxes haven't been changed in a very long time. Flashlights haven't really had anything new change about them or add-ons change about them in years. Keys and maps are really one-dimensional and boring and not very popular, right? But the thing about medkits is that they did get a rework relatively recently.
I just don't think they would.
The rework, I think... It made them a bit weaker, but also it made them feel more necessary. We nerfed a lot of add-ons, right? We made a lot of add-ons less powerful for self-healing. But then we kept the syringe and the styptic in the game, even though they were nerfed slightly, and they're still so good. Why wouldn't you run these things? The syringe basically heals you passively while you can, run around or do a gen, and it's still so unbelievably good. It basically smokes every other add-on in the list. And then we have add-ons that make your healing speed 5% faster. Why would you ever want that over having more charges, right? So I do think right now it's no surprise that almost all of the survivors that can afford it bring the strongest add-ons on the medkits. My idea, until we have some grander rework, is to make all add-ons a little bit more equal. Make this...
Oh, man. Got a lot of stuff here. Styptic removes all pools of blood on use. Effect lasts until dying state. No longer consumes medkit on use. I mean, that's kind of cool. That fits with a Styptic agent, because isn't a Styptic agent one that, like, quickly seals up a wound or something? So that kind of makes sense for stopping blood. It's not super useful. But I could see if you combine that with something that removes your scratch marks, that could be pretty nice. Syringe. Removes mangled and... Ooh, that is an interesting idea. That is really cool. I like that a lot. I just like that a lot, actually, way more than the passive heal over time. Or maybe you can make the passive heal over time a different add-on or something and make it... I don't know. I think that's really cool, because mangled and hemorrhage is a huge detrimental effect on healing. And if you have like an ultra rare add-on that can cancel that, that could be really neat. I think that's a way more interesting effect than just passive heal, you know? 25% self-heals a lot. Yeah, maybe you don't need that in general. Because it's not consuming your medkit anymore. You're just doing this, you know, banking on a killer having that. Holding this item with the add-on, your pools of blood disappear 4 seconds earlier. Yeah, I kind of like where he's going with this. Because he's right. Just things like, you know, 5% heal faster. Instead of healing someone in 16 seconds, you heal them in 15 seconds. Ooh. It's just not exciting to run, you know? I like add-ons that do, like, various things rather than just, like, ooh, your bar is YOLO and nothing else changes. Holding the item other than that set on, the aura of the nearest injured survivor is revealed to you. Yeah, little empathy effect. Your aura is revealed to all survivors during healing actions. That's cool. I like these a lot. Like, I don't even have to, like read these specifically. I like where his head is at here. I think these are way more dynamic and interesting and make the add-ons a very distinct choice rather than I do 5% or I do 10%. Which one am I going to choose? Like, I think this is really cool. I like this a lot.
Syringe and the Styptic are a little bit less impactful. I don't think there should be an item that gives you endurance. I'm sorry, I'll just die on that hill. But to make up for this nerf, make every other add-on on the medkit more engaging and more fun. Not just 5% faster.
Kind of like keys already. Keys have various effects like that.
Screen right now, this is just a suggestion, by no means like the only correct way to change add-ons. You have add-ons that actually do fun things. You have the sponge, for example, which gives you the blood of the person that you're healing, so that if you start running around, the killer will be confused because they'll see 2 blood pools, right?
That's cool.
They have interesting passives.
These are just Otz's ideas.
That can help solo players give information to their teammates or find their teammates when they are in need. There's one that lets you heal while you have like an off-the-record like effect, right? So if you want to heal by yourself, you can be a bit safer, and this could help solo players heal and not be targeted by the killer, right? So making the add-ons a little bit more fun, a little bit more fun.
I want to like take that further. What do you guys think we could do with the other items? Like, keys already have pretty dynamic effects with the obsession reveal, killer reveal, friendly survivor reveal. There's less add-ons for that because it's a very niche thing. What can we do with toolboxes? Because I don't think just Commodious toolboxes is just getting more charges and getting more speed and stuff. I think those are like the least interesting ways to do stuff like that. But what are some interesting things we can do with like a toolbox? Maybe like mark the gen that you're being worked on, or the gen that's being worked on, or I don't know, have like a mini blast mine effect or something like that. Like for, you know, maybe like a second, just more dynamic things like that. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, you could also do flashlights too, because flashlight add-ons are very boring as well. Although that's it's a bit more limited what you could do there. Maybe lightweight flashlight, run faster while blinding. I'd have to think way more about that kind of stuff. Show progress through aura. Yeah, like to everybody else, something like that. That's a cool idea. I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas here, and I'd love to expand on this a lot. I think he is absolutely cooking some good shit right here. Great soul checks reduce max charges instead of adding charges. That's an interesting idea, too. That's a really cool idea. Yeah, just shit like that. I think there's a billion things you can do that's better than just 5 more charges, 10 more charges, 5% faster, 10% faster. Like, brand new parts, despite being really good, are more along the lines of the creativity I would like to see from other add-ons.
So that there's reasons to run different ones in different situations, I think would really, really help. I think this could be a good first step for medkit add-ons, and this same this same idea could be applied to other items as well, which
definitely
right now are sorely missing in variety.
I would love that Knight.
And one more thing that could become really problematic if left unchecked for enough time would be slugging. We made a video recently talking about how good slugging is on the singularity in particular, but in that video we already talked that it's not just the singularity. A lot of killers, the majority of killers, seem to do better when you slug it with them than when you play them normally.
I still disagree with that. Based on what data? I don't know, man. I still don't agree that most killers benefit solely from slugging over hooking people. I feel like with We're Gonna Live Forever and Made for This and stuff like that, I am more scared slugging everybody than I am hooking people. On most killers. There are a couple of killers that are like Singularity, without a doubt. The Singularity knockout build is fucking insane. It's stupidly good. But I would not agree that most killers are going to benefit more from slugging than just hooking people. And I think he's talking about solely slugging, not just occasional smart slugging. Otherwise, why would he even be talking about this? Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think there are some killers, again, like Singularity, that does benefit more from slugging than not. But I would not say most, or it's like, I would say that maybe 10% of the killers do better solely slugging. Do I count people giving up after getting slugged? For what? I'm confused. I'm just like, I don't know where these claims are coming from. We watched Carnivorous' video, and we learned that the data was super skewed because the hatch was fucking everything up. So I don't know. I'm not sold on that point at all.
There are so many survivor perks that work around being hooked or being unhooked that are really powerful and common. If you just skip that part, it seems the average killer does actually better. Our friend Carnivorous, who is a content creator, actually recruited a bunch of killer mains, and they had like hundreds and hundreds of games where they tested normal gameplay, where you hook, and
I hope I've not been saying their name wrong. Shit, I thought it was Carnivorous.
And leaving people on the ground overwhelmingly resulted in faster matches, more kills, and the survivors getting even less gens done as well, if you can believe that. So part of this,
yeah. For those who don't know and didn't watch it, what was the main flaw with it? I don't remember exactly. It was something like hatch was being counted, so even though, oh right, hatch was being counted, and slugging inherently results in less hatches being given. So even though people were winning heavy, like super heavily, the nurse player there actually was losing games because hatch was worse than the full slug out. It was completely fucking up all the data. So it was just like, oh yeah, the no consistent playstyle too. Some people just had their own self-imposed no tunneling rules, and some people, yeah, the whole thing was not amazing data in my opinion.
Comes from the fact that the survivor team on average is not very prepared for that, but this is something that I can totally see developing into a more common strategy over time.
I don't think it'll ever be a problem.
Unfortunately, we had a change in the game that has made things arguably worse. We now have the yellow Mori become base kit, and what this means is that when there's only one survivor left,
that's just the end
killer
game.
Can now Mori them.
That's not what he's talking about.
Want to see this, right? And it's really, really cool. Why wouldn't you? But I feel like this is actually backfired a little bit. What ends up happening right now is that the killer will down the third survivor, and then when they can't find the fourth, they'll just leave the third survivor on the ground. And I see a lot of matches where nothing.
Is the animation difference really making people play differently there? I could see that happening for the first like week or something, but are people actually changing their play style just to see the Mori animation? My brain cannot process that at all. Like, why? And what are you basing this off of? Like, what is your previous data? Because it seems like everyone's just going off of guts here. Because, yeah, it's not like slugging for the 4K is a new thing. But my point is, whether they hook you or see the animation, do you really think a nice guy that was not slugging for the 4K, now because the Mori thing there is suddenly like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna be a dick now and slug this guy for 4 minutes because I need to see it? Like, do you really think it's affected that many people like that? That doesn't even seem rational. Seeing a different animation to end the match doesn't change my playstyle in the game. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I would love to see, like, I guess there's no way to really get data from that. It's going to be anecdotal from all of us, so I guess what's the point of talking about it? I don't notice a difference whatsoever, but just because you guys have and I have, it doesn't mean either of us are incorrect. It's just, that's not really something you can prove. That is fair to say. It can only influence it negatively. If I had to look at it like that, I don't think it's having much of an effect at all. But even if it is, the only effect it could have is negative, where there would be more slugging at the end game. Even if it's only 1 in 10 games that normally you wouldn't have there, you're right that no matter what, there's no positive aspect to it. It's only negative. So I can agree with that at the very least.
Gets done, the killer's just looking for the final guy, and this makes the queues longer because the matches are artificially extended, and it's really unfun, I think, for both sides. So please, 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 on top of making things more friendly for solo players, we already suggested, for example, that blindness should not apply to people on the ground, to discourage people from using blindness add-ons that make slugging very difficult for solo players. On top of little things like that, I also really think it would be a good idea to encourage killers to be okay with 3 kills. If you're a killer and you get 3 kills, that's good. You got the majority of them. It's fine if the last guy gets the hatch. In my opinion,
I don't know why more people don't think that.
The 3rd survivor on the ground, and that could open the hatch immediately and tell the 4th survivor that it's there, and you get the same points or more than if you kill all of them. I don't know.
I think if you introduce the mooring the 3rd guy and the 4th guy, I don't know if that's a good idea. Endgame Mori roomed hatch. I guess I'm just built diff, because it has changed nothing for my endgame. I play the exact same, except sometimes I get to see a different animation. I don't know. My little pea-sized brain cannot comprehend why people would have changed their play styles just to see a different animation. That just perplexes the shit out of me.
Give some lore justification for it. I don't care. It would be so much better if these 2v1 scenarios where the survivors are obviously going to die had a nice, faster way out. Yeah, it would probably make...
Wouldn't this not do anything, though? If people are slugging for the 4K, why wouldn't they just slug for the 4K? Just because they have the option to Mori the 3rd guy? Why they're already have the mindset of they want a 4K, so why they're just not gonna Mori the 3rd guy and just do the same shit? This is not gonna fix anything. It's a mindset issue. If they're trying to be that sweaty and only the 4K matters to them for some reason, thanks, Doofer. It's not gonna fix anything.
Everyone's gameplay a lot better. Trust me, as a killer, after a while you stop caring about the 4th kill. Please just end your games a little bit quicker. It's gonna be a favor for you.
I think people want the 4K more than they want the Mori, because the Mori doesn't give you anything different. It's just an animation you've seen 700 times. So I don't think that's the incentivizing factor. I think getting the 4K is far more important in their heads than just seeing the animation. He was saying giving them more points are the same as the 4K. Yeah, but if it's only a difference of a couple of 100 blood points, it's not going to change people's mindsets. I think we've learned that blood point incentives don't change what people want to play and how they play based on 2v8 queues. People are going to play how they want, and that's more important than the result, probably.
For everybody else. Now, if there's any other thing that you think is going to get worse over time in DBD, please let me know.
It's always about the invisible MMR number. I mean, that's Hey, right, the video's almost over. We can talk about that.
Let me know if you think any of these solutions would do anything. I struggled a lot to make this video. I'm really concerned about the game's future. I realized that during game modes, this is what the game will be like. Whenever the player base dies out a little bit, there's less new players, and it's just the veterans, this is what the game is going to feel like. Lobbies like what I showed you at the start of this video, and it is really scary. I'd prefer
why hasn't that happened, though?
To go and see that part of DVD if it's possible.
So, why hasn't that happened, though? It's been 8 years. Shouldn't that already be like... I don't know. I still feel like at the rate that people get to that point, we also gain new players and lose experienced players. So that's why I feel like it hasn't really reached a really nasty tipping point yet. But an interesting point, to his point about the whole events thing. The whole thing with the events. I'm like 99% sure when Chaos Shuffle was a thing, wasn't everyone saying that people playing Chaos Shuffle, all of those games were sweaty? Chaos Shuffle games were way more sweaty than normal games, and it's because there's no anti-tunnel and there's no slowdown, so killers felt more incentive to tunnel and slug and, all that stuff. And then survivors felt more incentivized to just, gen rush and get the fuck out because they had no second chance perks. So in that, isn't the exact opposite true? Because we had much sweatier games in the event mode. So I don't necessarily think it's the fact that it's the event, it's the context of what the modes are to begin with. Like, Lights Out didn't do anything. The normal queues weren't super sweaty after Lights Out. My Little Oni had no effect on, I don't know. Nobody likes Chaos Shuffle? That is an extremely hot take. I think Chaos Shuffle is probably the most liked custom mode that they've added. I don't think that's true at all. I think people, like, really enjoyed Chaos Shuffle. Lights Out was terrible. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chaos Shuffle was more popular than, like, at least it was more widely received well than 2v8. I think killers love 2v8, but I feel like most people enjoyed Chaos Shuffle. But regardless, my whole point was, he was saying that it was going to make it so when we had, every time there's a new event, which, you know, how often do we get events like this now? It's like, last 2v8 was like 4 months ago, I think. Did we have a Chaos Shuffle in between? We did, right? I think. What is the last event we had? We did, okay, we did have a Chaos Shuffle, and that was, what, like 2 months ago, maybe? It's like a month and a half, 2 months ago, something like that. So it's like every month and a half to 2 months we get a new event, and it typically lasts about 2 weeks. So let's just say 8 weeks, so 2 weeks out of 8 weeks we're in an event. So 25% of the time we're having this scenario. This is just huge spitballing. We have this scenario here. But Chaos Shuffle did not have the negative impact on the regular matches. It's really only been 2v8. Because like I said, I didn't really notice my regular matches, my non-Chaos Shuffle matches being more sweaty. But the inherent casual nature of 2v8 makes it so casual players gravitate towards that, and the good sweaty players gravitate towards the 1v4 mode. So with this specific event, I would agree, but I don't think that's going to be a repeated widespread problem every time we have an event. I don't think that's going to be an issue. What's the topic? He mentioned at the end there, and sort of like the basis of the video, is that when events happen every couple of months or whatever, the normal mode of the game is going to be a lot sweatier. I mean, this is just one of his points, but the normal mode of the game is going to be a lot sweatier because of that. But it's not related necessarily due to the fact that it is a different mode. It's related to the context of what is going on in that mode. If anything, the thing I loved most from this video was the add-on changes. I think the add-on changes are a really, really cool idea. And I think every item in the game should get that because they are so much more exciting than just, you know, I want them to be build enablers. Like, survivors don't have much to change up their builds. They got perks. That's it. But if we actually had build enablers in items, I think that would be so much more interesting. Like, that's such a cool idea. So I definitely agree with that. And if anything to take away from this video is that we need to have add-on changes for items and stuff like that, because that would just make things way more fun. Making survivor builds would be way more interesting than making killer builds, because I feel like making killer builds is way more in-depth than survivor builds, because, you know, you've got the power, how the add-ons are going to affect the power, and then the perks that synergize with the add-ons and the power that you have with yourself. Survivor, you just got perks. That's it. So when you said everyone hates Chaos Shuffle, it's probably because your subjective experience on it was just tunneling every game and everyone in your social was complaining about it. Sure, most normal people liked it. I mean, that's fair. Well, that does go on to what I was talking about. I did notice Chaos Shuffle games were a bit sweatier. And, you know, it would make sense that they were sweatier because survivors didn't have second chance perks and killers didn't have anti-tunnel perks and all that stuff. So both sides were trying to basically outsweat each other. But yeah, I agree with a lot of stuff here. I mostly heavily agree with the add-on changes. I would be very happy to see those, and I actually legitimately want to spend time like theory crafting what we could see there, kind of like how we did with Medkit. So I think that's really cool. Any other closing thoughts from anybody on the topic before we move on? We have not gotten a game yet. It's been 6 hours. We're not getting a game. I actually don't think I queued. That's all right. No thoughts? Same. Monkey brain. Having data on Slug 4K would be great. Yeah, I would love to see a much more well-controlled version of that experiment that didn't have the multiple things that caused a bunch of errors in the data, namely the hatch fucking everything up, and also some people just having completely separate. There was no consistent play style. Some people were not tunneling. Some people were like only tunneling. Some people were playing like they were in comp. Some people were just playing casually. It was completely... the data was not great, so I would love to see that. But yeah, that was good. That was fun. I appreciate you guys suggesting it to me.